Back in San Jose, certainly a special place for you. Is it? I mean, is it still special for you to host fight cards here?
Oh yeah, I mean, this is where my fight career basically started and blossomed, and we had so many great fights in this town. Even before MMA started, with kickboxing, we had some of the best fights here. I remember when I first started promoting here, there wasn't an arena bigger than 3,000 seats, and that was right across the street at the Civic Center. There's no San Jose Arena, there was no San Jose State Event Center, so it was like a sleepy little town, but it was, it's where I grew up as a teenager and as an adult, and chose to stay here and became Silicon Valley. Who knew? I mean, really, it was not like that when I grew up, but it's an amazing fight town, it's an amazing fight culture. I think we've helped build the fan base to expect great fights to come to this town 2 or 3 times a year, and they've been very good to us.
I think you stacked the fight card here. I mean, this one is looking exciting, start to finish. So, I mean, is that a conscious decision to be like, hey, we're doing San Jose, that's my place. Let's do this right.
You cannot bring a mediocre card here and think you're going to get away with it. They're very educated fans. I mean, the martial arts community here that really helped build the fan base over the last 30 years. They know what to expect, and they're excited about it Saturday, because if you look at the fight card, I mean, from top to bottom, it's pretty amazing, and I think the Daly Lorenz Larkin fight, that's going to be my favorite fight of the night.
Kind of an interesting fight weekend. It's a little bit of role reversal. You got the UFC playing on Friday night, and you guys got wrapping it up on Saturday. Is that fun for you at all to kind of be in that scenario? You know what?
I know that they have a fight in Japan, and really it's, like I said over and over again, when I wake up every day, I'm just focused on building Bellator and moving this brand forward and signing more fighters and signing more, bringing more staff on board and growing. And Viacom has been, very supportive, and they're extremely excited about Bellator. But I don't want to say I forgot they had the fight on Friday, but now you remind me they have a fight on Friday night. But, hey, look, I wish them luck. Japan's a great fight market, and one day we'll go there as well.
Very cool. So you got Vincent Henderson in the main event here. Had some mixed results in Bellator, but obviously fighting against, just elite level competition. I wonder, I mean, how do you look at that as a promoter? Because you bring a guy in, right? You invest in a free agent. Mm-hmm. You bring him in. You want the guy to be successful, right? But I feel like there's also maybe a flip side in that the fact that he did lose a little bit, it almost like validates your talent level to say, look, just because we bring guys in doesn't mean they're going to walk all over the guys that we have. So how do you see that?
You know what, I tell you, when it goes back to even when we had Strikeforce, right? It was like, oh, Strikeforce fighters are subpar to the UFC fighters. And now it's proven, man, it's not about the league, it's about the athlete. If you look at Tyron Woodley, Luke Rockhold, Daniel Cormier, Ronda Rousey, Nick Diaz, Robbie Lawler. I mean, these guys all came from Strikeforce over there, and then they kicked their asses over there. So to me, it was like, look, it's the same thing here. People say, oh, UFC, and then look, it's not about the brand, it's about the athlete. And I think about, I made a statement the other day saying, hey, we have the best 2 welterweights in the planet, right? And people are like, oh, some people are like, yeah, this is great, and people are really excited about the fight because it's going to be an amazing fight January 20th at the Forum. But, some people are like, oh, and I'm like, hey, wait, hold on. Now, Rory did beat T. Wood, and Lorenz knocked out, or maybe it was a decision, but he beat Robbie Lawler. That's their 1-2. So, how, and Lima just beat Larkin. So, how can you not say that's the number 1-2? I mean, to me, that's my logic behind it, right? So, to me, it's about the athlete and not about the brand.
The other side of the table, the main event, Patricky, coming off a little bit of controversy last time, of course. But I wonder, I mean, this would be a big win. I mean, this would be a signature win for him. What do you think could be next? I mean, does this have title implications? Could Primus maybe be next? That's the fight he wants.
Yeah, I mean, everything's up in the air. We're going to take a look at this fight on Saturday night and see how it unfolds. But I know that Benson, Chandler, Pitbull, they all want to get back there and get in that title belt. And really, we're waiting for Primus because his wife is having a child, and so we said, okay, we'll respect the the fighter's wishes in that sense. But at some point next year, we'll start getting it on, and this one will have some title implications to it.
Do you feel obligated to do the Chandler rematch first if he's there or not?
I mean, I know that Michael would like that, and I think it's the right thing to do. But sometimes injuries happen, things happen. You never know in the sport, right? I mean, it's something that we would like to do, but I think we have to stay fluid on that.
Nice. talk about a Brazilian trying to be a title holder. You got a lot of Brazilian champions. I wonder, as you're making this international push, I guess first of all, start with just having Brazilian champions. Is that difficult to market sometimes? I mean, we talk about being primary English speakers and maybe relating to the audience or whatever. The fact that you have so many Brazilians successful right now, is it a challenge at all for you?
I mean, not really. I mean, to me, it's like, look, whoever wins, wins. That's how I feel. That we're in a sport, and really, at the end of the day, it's like if they're the best athletes and they're our champions, then that's what it is. If it's more Dutch fighters or more UK fighters or USA fighters, at the end of the day, it's really about the best person winning. And we have a big Brazilian fan base. We have a lot of good coverage over in Brazil. And you know what? I think in 2018 we will be heading that direction to do some fights.
Interesting. I was going to ask you about that because you are making a nice international growth footprint right now. Brazil, I know their economy is a little tough right now, but with the success you have, you feel like that's a target for you, a goal to get there?
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely want to expand into to Brazil, maybe Argentina, doing fights in Mexico. We're building up an infrastructure right now to start a real big international push.
It's interesting because you talked about Strikeforce a little bit earlier, and Strikeforce was amazing. Does so many wonderful things when they were the local, homegrown focus on the product. And then a lot of people think that when you expanded and you got big, that's when things turned a little bit and got maybe more difficult. Do you feel like you learned lessons from there, or do you feel like there's concerns as you expand to make sure that we keep the quality right, we keep the recipe right?
I mean, you know what? When I think of Strikeforce, man, what an amazing product it was, honestly. And when we started, we had no TV deal at all. I remember the very first fight, we had no sponsors. I think SureDog was our first sponsor, right? They didn't pay us any money. We'll give you some extra banner ads or something. And we had no TV. And we filmed it with the Sharks had a deal with Fox Sports here, so they filmed it in HD. Luckily, so we have this great library all shot in HD from the beginning of the Strikeforce history, and I think about this great brand, and really there was the four pillars that built it, right? There was Shamrock, Kung Lee, Gilbert, and Josh, right? And so those guys, we kind of rode the wave for the first couple of years. We had an HDNet deal for a year, and then we had the opportunity to buy Pro Elite. Right, and that's really when I think it changed. But I don't think it changed like it got crazy or did the economic impact make a difference? Yes, but really it's like look at all the fighters you got with that deal. You got Gina Carano to come back. You got Lawler. You got Nick Diaz. I mean Jake Shields came back on board. We had the opportunity to sign so many great fighters and bring them on, and that's when we got the CBS and Showtime deal. Right, so if you look at the progression. From the time we brought Pro Elite to the time UFC came knocking on the door to buy it, it was 18 months, right? So maybe I feel like two things that I've learned from this deal is like the growth of how fast you grow, right? And without the proper infrastructure, because we were really very lean, but we're doing amazing fights. I mean, some of the best fights, and we signed Fedor, and I said this before is like, be careful who your partner is, because really their vision has to be in line with your vision. And my guys saw an exit and a multiple that they felt very comfortable with. I was in it for the long haul, and so that's where I think the difference is. And I think that's the number one key is be careful who your partner is, because if back then if I was partnered with Viacom back then, been a much different deal, because they're in it for the long haul. And since 2006, Viacom's been involved in MMA. Kevin K was the first one to greenlight MMA on a national network like that consistently, put on Ultimate Fighter, and then they did all these fights, and they without them the next pieces wouldn't have happened, because back then you remember it was taboo. It was like, oh my God, these guys are fighting in a cage, and what's going to happen? And I remember in 2006 we did the first fight here in San Jose, and it was the CBS affiliate, and he comes over and says, Are you? Is this like like chicken fighting for men in a cage? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like this is martial arts competition at the highest level, and I had to break it down for them. Like I said, look, in the Olympics, you can do judo, you can choke people out, you can armbar people, they have taekwondo in there, you can kick people, you can box. I mean, 95% of the techniques that you do in the Olympics, you can do in cage fighting. And that's how I explained to them. They go, oh, I get it. So it was a process of education between what we were doing, and UFC was, in the forefront there too. educating people and creating rules, but really it was a general conception at that time that this is like taboo, and that was my first experience with cage fighting here, and it was an interesting time. But when I think about going back to the history of Strikeforce, it was I think that be careful who your partner is. That's my biggest takeaway from that whole thing, because it could have been a different outcome, because we had so many great fighters and we know how to promote, but my guys, they just had a different vision.
You guys are ramping up for a pretty busy finish to this year. A lot of events all over the world. I wonder, you talk about the humble roots. Is it still fun for you? I mean, is it still a passion for you, or has it become work to a degree when you're talking about managing multiple events on dates all over the world? I mean, it's a grind on people.
You know what it is, and it's something I just love to do. It's like from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed, I'm pretty much on. And I think the 3 years I had at during the break between the sale of Strikeforce and then coming to Viacom, I had 3 years to travel the world, golf 4 times a week. Really, my life just stopped. It was like, they say stop and smell the roses. I got the opportunity to really do that for 3 years. And so I was like, this is kind of boring. I would wake up and I would go, what am I going to do today? Like, I have nothing to do. I really had nothing to do, right? And I call my friends and they're like, I go, hey, I'm working. What do you think I'm doing? Like, I got no time for you. You're the only guy that has the time that I know. So really, it was a weird existence, because for 3 years it was just like, and I got to travel the world and see more places than I ever thought I'd ever go to, and probably went back to them 2 or 3 times each over the 3 years. And it was a really weird time, because at that time, when I first sold, I didn't know if I was going to come back to martial arts promotion, right? And I didn't know what the landscape would be like, whether it be too full or too empty maybe, or something happened, or the TV regulators turned against it. Like, you never know, right? So to me, I said 3 years from now, who knows what the future's going to be? And so I just said, hey, I'm just going to do this, golfing and traveling, and then 3 years later, that's when I got a call from Kevin Kay, and really I was heading to a different direction, created my own company and everything, and it was a sit down I had with him that probably lasted like 6 hours. And I said, I really like this guy's energy, and I really feel like he's onto something that I could really add value. And then I said, after a while, I decided, let's go for it. Let's go kick some ass.
Very nice. This fight on Saturday, another fight that I think everybody's looking forward to, is Roy Nelson coming over. I mean, a fan favorite. Of course, Javi, what he did last time out was amazing. I wonder, kind of, first of all, you're excited level for that fight, and secondly, kind of if that has title implications too. I mean, that heavyweight title slot has been empty for so long, and I know you wanted to get somebody in that slot. Is this a fight that could help maybe determine a championship fight? Or Roy actually mentioned maybe the possibility of doing a Grand Prix. Would you be open to that idea?
I mean, I think everything's open. I think that let's get through this fight, see how they look, and but we're putting the pieces together to do something really special. And I haven't quite fleshed it out yet, but when we do, crowning the heavyweight champion is going to be something big for Bellator, because I've been waiting and waiting for the right opportunity and the right fights and the right meaningful, 2 title, or the 2 guys to come in and do the fight. I didn't want to just throw a title or bring this guy back or that guy back just to do it. I mean, to me, it's like we had other divisions that were extremely strong, and the heavyweight was something we had to build for the last 3 years. And I think we're almost there, but I think sometime in 2018 you'll hear something really cool, and we'll do something really fun, and it'll be something kind of crazy maybe.
Nice. You've shown a commitment to the women's game as well, obviously throughout your promoting career. But yeah. Where does the future with Bellator sit right now? Because there's been some dabbling here and there, but just now really starting to consistently put on women's fights. What do you see in the future of the women's game? How many divisions do you see, champions, that sort of thing? Talk about your commitment there.
I think that we'll stick with our 2 divisions right now, and again, it was a process of how many great female fighters do we walk into, and how many have we built, and how many will we sign to continue the building of the female division. And honestly, it's something I think we're really good at. But it takes time. I mean, it takes time to culture. Like, I look at, like, when I signed Tyron Woodley, right? He had no fights. Luke Rockhold had no fights, right? You're talking 6 years later. Now they're in their prime. winning the titles, fighting for Connecticut. I mean, it takes a long time to build a star or build an MMA fighter to really become relevant in this space. And so that's what we're doing now. We're putting the building blocks into place. We're going after certain fighters that we want, and we're going to keep growing the female division. And then give us a couple more years, and then I think we're going to have a flourishing female division.
Can you talk briefly about Bellator Kickboxing as well? I'll be honest, we don't normally, being an MMA site, we don't normally cover it, but it's funny, I saw the full card, and I read the names, and even not being a kickboxing guy, I'm like, that's a damn good card.
Yeah.
So, I mean, can you talk about, I guess, what your commitment is to the kickboxing and kind of where that goes? Because, it's a great card, but then it's not airing for a couple of weeks, right? I mean, so kind of talk to me about what the vision is for Bellator Kickboxing.
I'll tell you, when Spike and Glory basically decided we're not going to do business together anymore. Kevin came to me and said, "Hey, would you like to promote some kickboxing fights?" And I said, "Absolutely," because I still love it. And I still love watching it, and I think they're extremely talented athletes. And some of the athletes have crossed over. Like Paul Daly fought a kickboxing fight against Fernando Gonzalez. We had Kato go. He fought in. I think he fought in a kickboxing fight against Joe Schilling, and then Schilling came over and fought Melvin. I mean, so there was some fun dabbling back and forth. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to the network wants 4 events a year right now, and that's what we're providing. We're providing 4 events, and we're bringing the best fighters on the planet. Joe Schilling, Raymond Daniels. Gaji is unbelievable. Wait till you see this guy. He is an amazing talent. And then you have Kevin Ross. He's a great talent too, getting his title shot. So you have he gave us ability to, Kevin, I'm saying Spike TV and Kevin gave us ability to put on 4 events a year with the best fighters that we could put together, and it's something that I love watching it. And the first one we did in Italy, we had the ring, and then when the cage came down and locked it, I mean, it was really spectacular. And I think some countries will continue doing that. I mean, I think the Bay Area is some place where you'll see there's a lot of kickboxing, a lot of MMA in the Bay Area. In Europe, when we go to the Netherlands and we do a fight in Amsterdam, maybe soon, they have a bigger kickboxing community than they have than MMA. I'll be honest. When we started going to Italy, it was all about Giorgio Petrosian, right? I mean, he was like, he's an amazing fighter, and it was all about him. No one knew any of the MMA fighters over there. And people, if we just threw MMA, people, it'd probably be, 2,000 or 3,000 people coming to the venue. And if we go to France, we can go with our kickboxing brand. We don't have to wait for MMA to become legal over there. So I think that having the kickboxing is a way to stay connected to a lot of these countries that, that maybe kickboxing is more popular than MMA throughout the world.
You, like I said, you got a busy into 2017, but we're always looking to the future. I mean, big things going on right now. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of positive energy behind the direction the Bellator is going, the names you guys are bringing in. I guess last thing for me, I know you got to keep business tight to the vest sometimes, but can you give us an idea of what 2018 holds for Bellator? I mean, any kind of innovations or differences or growth or things that you want to achieve next year?
You know what? I mean, I can't just give you my playbook, but I can talk in general terms. I can just talk in general terms. I mean, look, we are a Spike TV property, and I said to people all the time, look, to be successful in this business, you have to do 2 things. You have to put asses in seats, right? And you have to have good TV ratings. If you can do that, you're gold. But I think that the amount of shows that we do next year will stay the same. We'll do 24 events plus the 4 kickboxing shows. Some maybe next year they might be independent, not piggybacked off the other shows. But so we're going to produce 28 shows minimum. It could grow. And as you know, Spike is turning into Paramount in January. So we're going to become a Paramount, like, it's not Paramount Sports, but it's going to be the only sports property on Paramount. And people are like, well, how does that work? And to me, it's just like HBO. They have all these great shows and all these, scripted shows. Then on Saturday nights, twice a month, there's a big boxing fight, or on Showtime, the same thing. They have, it's really more like, drama series and Homeland and Ray Donovan. And then all of a sudden there's Showtime boxing. That's kind of what I think is going to happen with the network, is that it's going to be really high-end programming, and then they're going to have Bellator on twice a month. But international expansion will continue to grow. You'll see us in more cities next year than we were this year, or even the year before. And the mission is to grow, because Viacom, it's an amazing company, because when I think about their growth and their reach. There hasn't been any country that we've went to so far that Viacom doesn't already have an office there or have a TV deal there. They just launched Spike Italy like 2 weeks ago. And so they own their own network. So for distribution for us is the ownership group owns the distribution. So this is a much different animal than any other MMA league because it's really a vertically integrated company from the ownership group to the television distribution to the sponsorship sales to international sales in parts that they don't own. It's a very special group of people or company that owns this brand, and I think the sky's the limit because the one thing we talked about this past week when I was in LA was how do we integrate Bellator, which is owned by Viacom, into other Viacom properties. So don't be surprised if you see some of our fighters doing other entertainment opportunities, and because I think that when you think about crossing over to pop culture, nobody has done it better than Viacom over the last 30 years.
Hi.
Hello.
I'll keep it short because I know you guys have a football game to get to.
Not me. Who's going? You guys are going to a game? I'm joking.
So another thing that Roy had brought up was that he would love to have more events out in Vegas, and knowing that he has that fan and draw power, is that something that you think you and Bellator would be open to?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's a really good promoter in Las Vegas right now, and they're doing a good job. But I think there's room for us to go in. I think the timing has to be right, and but I think that we will go sometime in 2018.
And can we talk a little bit about the women's flyweight division? Why you chose these two ladies to step up and fight for that inaugural belt?
I mean, I think they deserve it. At the end of the day, I think they're the two best females in that weight class, and I think Alima is somebody that we have, I think, a lot of hopes for, that she could build in something, really special in the future. But she's got to do her part. In a fight, you never know, right? I mean, in a fight, things could change, and and not be the outcome that most people think. But this is a girl that she fought once. It was a tough fight, and I think that it's going to be a barn burner.
And then can we talk a little bit about Aaron Pico? What is it that you see in this young prospect and have confidence in him to bring him back for a second main event?
I think you have to look at the history of how Pico came here and how it all evolved, and really it was Bob Cook coming to me and saying, "Hey, we got this kid and he's amazing, he's phenomenal." And the last time Bob said that to me, it was Daniel Cormier, and then Tyron Woodley, and then Luke Rockhold. So when Bob Cook calls you, you really listen to what he has to say. And so he said, "This is the kid. You need to sign him." So we signed him, and then I started, looking at all of his, past history of wrestling and boxing, and I go, man, he's already, 2/3 there. Really, he just has to get experience and tighten up his jiu-jitsu game or anti-jiu-jitsu game, whatever he wants to do, and then I think this guy could really become something special. And he's been a professional athlete, I think, for the last 5-6 years. When I say that, I mean it's like a full-time commitment to wrestle. And our deal with him was like, look, you want to continue wrestling. When you're finished wrestling, then you come and fight. So it didn't work out his first fight, but I think that he got caught. Anything had happened. It's real time, real speed. I think that he was fighting in a weight class that was a little heavy for him. So he's back down to 145. I think he'll probably stay there. And he'll be tested again on Saturday night. So this is not an easy fight. This is something that's going to come out and bring it. And he's going to have his hands full on Saturday.